Alright, hello everyone. It's about time I did another one of these. It's been a few weeks. Actually, no, I think it's been a couple of months. Anyway, we only have 4 comments this week. Of course, leave more comments under this video, any questions, whatever. Um, I do read all of what is posted under my videos, so I will see it. Anyways, let's get into it. Ubermensch Dion says, how can one get a knowledge base as yourself? I understand reading is fundamental to it all, but how can I express myself as you express yourself in your speeches and reactionary written work? Thank you. Um, I don't really know. I think it really depends on the individual and their personality and their strengths and weaknesses and how they project themselves. Um, my, I think one of my strengths is the fact that I'm confident. That has become arrogance. It does at points, but generally speaking, I have a steady confidence in how I speak, even now, and how I conduct myself and how I think. It is undercut by self doubt and other things, but generally speaking, I do project an image of confidence. And that's mostly because I have absolutely no fear of being wrong about anything. I know that if I'm incorrect, if I make a mistake, someone will correct me. On the internet, things are public, people will see things, people will comment. If I fuck up, people will tend to tell me most of the time. And even if they don't tell me, I'll make them, as I've had to do before. So yeah, so I mean that's a big part of it. Yeah, reading is of course important. You can't do much if you don't know anything. Experience comes into it, logic and patience comes into it. You have to have the patience to learn and to consider what you're saying. I mean, when I communicate ideas, there are a lot of things happening all at once. So you'll notice that I add caveats to a lot of things. I will rephrase things several times in several different ways. I will expand points in various manners. I'm doing it right now, actually. Um, and that helps to flesh things out with what I'm saying and to kind of reinforce the point. But I'm also always anticipating disagreement. I'm always thinking about, okay, this word I could be using right at this very second. How could it be misconstrued by the listener? What's the thought process which could entail from them hearing a certain word phrased in a certain way? It's really autistic, but that's just how my mind works, and it's even worse with writing. It's why I haven't written in a couple of weeks actually, because I just get so pedantic about writing. And I've been busy, I've been productive doing other things, but I get so pedantic about writing that it can be very difficult to actually finish something because I'm always wanting to revisit it, change this, overthink that. So obviously all that has to be reeled in, but that requires self-awareness. Self-awareness, confidence, and confidence through self-awareness, and vice versa. That's, I think, a skill which can be learned. I don't think it's something which most people really have. Most people are quite passive. They tend to be, they aren't part of that 5%. You have the F test, the fascist test. 5%, 1 in 20 of all people, is a leader, is a kind of fascistic authoritarian figure. In some ways, I'm kind of like that, although not as much as some other people. I think another thing there which does come as a consequence of all this is how you approach social affairs. So with me and my social group, there are no equals. I have friends who I do see as clearly superior to me, but I seek to learn from them. And there are people who I believe I'm superior than, and I seek to help them and to teach them. So that goes totally against your modern social programming, whereby you have to treat everyone the same, you have to treat everyone equally. There are obviously dangers to all of this, though, because we don't really have any structures, especially in Europe, because the modern individualistic European mindset is as such. We don't have any structures in society which encourage or educate or inform people about how to actually properly interact socially, as to better the social experience and to give it depth, and to make it worthwhile, quality over quantity. It's one thing to know 200 people, it's another to know 5 very good friends, and to actually enrich each other's lives, and to help each other grow as human beings. And that's what I would encourage people to do. It's why I always bang on about those sorts of things, about people's sincerity, and the fact that I don't like people just commenting on my channel to criticize. I much prefer it when people actually message me or contact me privately to correct something, because it demonstrates that they actually care. They actually give a shit about what I'm saying and about my personhood, and the fact that I may or may not know a thing. But you notice that everything I'm speaking about here comes as a consequence of a search for authenticity and for reality. I have no time for things of a shallow or temporary nature when it comes to these sorts of affairs, interacting with human beings. It must be, and should be, and will be inevitably important and profound. And I would encourage people to be aware of that angle and to try and understand it. Because I think it is definitely part of what we need to see from perhaps the leaders of our society and of our communities. Leaders need to again become leaders in the proper sense, and having a good sense of self and a willingness to thrust oneself into situations is a part of that. And I suggest that, and I suppose that's what I'm doing in a way. So, like I said, you might be more introverted than me. I'm very, very, very introverted. I'm not an extrovert at all. I lose a lot of energy by spending time with people. So you'll notice actually in the last podcast, the last Plebeian podcast on Tuesday, where we went for like 9 hours, I was getting really snappy and really irritable. Yeah, that's because my psychology, I lose energy by spending time with people. I don't gain it. I have good social skills, but I expend energy by talking with people and by interacting with people, whereas extroverts would gain energy. So it does all depend on your personality, how you approach life, how you approach yourself, how you express yourself, like you say, regarding writing and speeches. Just to comment on those two things specifically instead of the topic generally, the speeches, oh man, the more I think about the speeches, the more I regret them. Because it's funny, I want to do more, and I want to correct the flaws with what I've done so far with the speeches. But I'm such a critic that I actually regret doing them, which is ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous, but my gut feeling is I shouldn't have done any of them. I shouldn't have involved myself with any of it. But hopefully, in spite of that, I'm sure I will do more speeches in the future. I will get pushed into it somehow. It's funny, when you're speaking in that sort of environment, you are nervous in a strange way, but at the same time you feel very strong and calm. It's weird, you get this kind of paradox. So when I spoke at the London Forum, for example, my right leg was fucking shaking, and yet I felt like I could say anything I fucking liked, and no one would have said anything otherwise. You get this kind of, you sense the power dynamic, and it's quite interesting. Regarding written work, yeah, like I said, actually I have mentioned written work. Written work is not a forte of mine. I don't think I'm a very good writer, to be quite honest. There are moments where I kind of hit the nail on the head and can be quite quotable, I suppose, but there are better writers than me, so I don't think I can really comment on that. I think, yeah, especially considering the sort of writing I tend to do and my style of writing is quite personalised. It isn't, here are the facts. I tend to weave in a lot of other nonsense as well. Not so much rhetoric and lies or anything like that, but I tend to phrase things in certain ways in accordance to my speech, and the way my mind processes information, how I reach logical conclusions, etc. So I do think, however, regarding all this, practice is, it's cliche to say practice makes perfect, but it's so true. The more you do something, you'll get better at it. If you're meant to be doing it, if it's a strength of yours, if it can be a strength of yours, you'll fit into it as you do it. So if you want to write, make a blog on WordPress or whatever, and just, every other day or every week or every fortnight, just write 1,000 words about a topic. Just get into the rhythm of that. And it's the same with speaking and making videos and what I'm doing now. It requires a certain mentality and a certain mindset. to break into and to remain consistent. And being consistent, by the way, is one of my problems. I'm not very consistent. I find it very difficult to be consistent. But hey, it's all a process, and I'm getting better, much better than I used to be. Anyways, enough of that. So hopefully that kind of answers your question there. Now, Commonwealth Albion has two kind of comments / questions. The first one is quite a lengthy comment, and you will see it in the description. I won't read it all out. But the bulk of, or the main point I felt, which was here, was here it is. How do the elites define the world, and all that sort of thing. If we say, who is a superior or inferior man, how is it exposed to us? And does that conflict with what is societally recognised, or institutionally or governmentally recognised as superior and inferior? In the modern world, of course, we have it upside down. The prevailing ethos of our age is slave morality. In Europe, it is weakness, resentment, ignorance of one's actual self. It's because people, it's like a fish who swims in water doesn't know there's air above him. Modern Europeans who are totally surrounded by materialism and cosmopolitanism and the total focus on the here and now and the me instead of anything else. They're not aware of any sort of higher dimension, and this does go to the elite as well. But I think the basic gist of the comment here, at least my main takeaway, is how do we define who is inferior and who isn't inferior? Who's inferior, and who's superior? Regarding social hierarchy, it has to be local. You can't. If you're in a position of power, and you can do that, then cool. But the problem is, most of the people listening to this, myself, we aren't really in positions of power. I mean, we are in positions of influence over our peers and those close to us. I have a position of influence regarding people listening to this. But, we cannot control society. But how do we know that the quote-unquote elite are not actually an elite? Well, we have to define what elite is. And there are plenty of examples in history for us to really analyse. When we say elite, we mean distinguished, special, above the rabble, unique, superior. We mean, if someone is elite, it means they're the best at what they do, or they're amid the best. How we define best? Skills, capabilities, their quality of their personhood, which is dependent upon things like self-knowledge, self-actualization, virtue, and all that sort of things. We won't get into an ethical debate here. But we know that the contemporary rulers of the world, whether it's in finance or in politics or wherever else, they don't practice virtue. They're often very narcissistic, they're very materialistic, they don't have the best interests of the people whom they're supposed to be serving in mind, they're often very godless, they don't have any sort of philosophical cornerstone to their morality. As we know from the recent Podesta leaks from WikiLeaks, total moral depravity on the part of these individuals who actually have sway and power in the contemporary world. So it's obvious that something isn't right if these people are doing what they're doing. Europe is going under because its leaders are allowing it to go under, because Merkel and all the rest are allowing what they're allowing. We know, what they're doing and why they're mistakes, and what they're doing and why what they are doing is mistaken. We know that. But like I said, it has to be local. It's no point, blathering on about social caste if it's kept purely at the intellectual level, and blathering on about class and relations between people. And no. These things have to be organically and actuarially experienced. Like I said regarding my friends and myself, like there are hierarchies in small social circles. There are people who are leaders, people who know things, people who don't know things, people who others look to for advice and for a word and all that sort of thing. You see it. It's organic. The hierarchical nature of human social organization is absolutely ordinary and natural. And it's only through the social metric of materialism and capitalism in the modern world, and the philosophical matrix of liberalism, whereby this is ignored and curtailed, because obviously the market levels everything, progressive philosophy levels everything. It ignores all these differences, which are pre-existent to a degree, or it says it ignores them. But even in a progressive university, you have lecturers and you have students, don't you? I mean, you can't get rid of some things. But, yeah, have a look here. I'm just going to pick apart a few of the words. Yeah, regarding the leaders of society who would probably say I'm not elite because I don't have loads of money, I'm from a working class family, and all the rest of it. So what? What is their authority? My authority is tried and tested. I'm merely repeating what has been said by greater men before me. What I'm saying really is quite objective. It's observable to all. I'm explaining what I mean through logic, and so on. The value and quality of a person is determined by how virtuous they are, and how do you put this? Well, there's only so many ways you can say someone being virtuous without getting into defining virtue. So I think that kind of answers the general gist of your comment there. Of course, as usual, everyone, if I haven't explained something or whatever, do comment in the comment section below. Now, Commonwealth Albion does have a second question here. How do you deal with being public as to your identity, especially the threat of the thought police crashing down on you? A lot of the stuff you talk about can be broadly interpreted as violating the Race Relations Act. Yet here you are with your own name. The simple answer is I just don't care. That really is it. I really don't care. If I get put in prison or fined, then that's a martyr. We are observing a zeitgeist shift. Nothing can stop it. Absolutely nothing can stop it. It's inevitable that we see the pendulum shift rightwards again. Even if it is on the horizontal plane, we are seeing it shift rightwards. And the emergence of people like me and the alt-right and everything else, it's a part of that. Slapping me in irons to a youth centre or whatever won't do anything. If I disappeared, there'd still be fucking 10 more people just like me. And that's why it would be a waste of time. But no, I have no concerns or worries. Mostly because what I say isn't... I have some, edgy opinions, but most of the time I don't phrase things in edgy ways. And I'm not really a hateful person, I'm not a rabid, hysterical sort. I'm anti-Semitic in as much as I'm not mercantilic. And I have reservations about the kind of bourgeois mentality. I'm anti-Islam in so much as from the perspective of a meta-politic. I am English, I'm, by extension European. This is European land, it has its own character, the people have their own character, which is not compatible with Islam, and the only reason Islam is here is because of capitalism, it's because of multiculturalism, it's because of materialism, and it shouldn't be here because the practitioners are only here for money. There is no continuity between Islam and Europe, to my understanding. So that's my perspective. It isn't because I hate kikes and I hate Pakis. There's a bit more to it than that. And I've never really come out and said, get these darkies out of our country and things like this. Because my instinct is to actually go a bit deeper than that and to explain why. Like I mentioned with the London Forum meeting that I was at, the problem there wasn't anti-Semitism. The problem there was the type of anti-Semitism. It was the hysterical victim mentality, which I find to be a problem, because that isn't a mentality which breeds anything healthy or constructive, which breeds anything ordered and positive. It's a vindictive and resentful mentality, which will only spiral downwards. You can't beat chaos with chaos, basically. So, yeah, I have no worry about being found or being visited by the police if they showed up. I'd give them a cup of tea and ask them what laws I violated. But to my knowledge, I haven't really broken any laws. You could construe that I've broken certain hate speech laws, although I've never really advocated for violence in a serious manner. I never would. I would never go on like marches or anything like that. I'm quite harmless. People know that, to a degree anyway. What I tend to advocate is personal transformation, in a sense. That's kind of implied with a lot of what I do, and it's kind of there in the background. And arguably, that's more dangerous than going out and bashing Pakis, because it's actually a long-term and permanent change, aside from just a bit of sporadic violence. The actual quality of European and you could say broader white people has to improve, and that has longer and more important and more healthy outcomes and consequences than random acts of violence and discrimination. But I do discriminate. I don't purchase things from immigrants. I don't buy like Chinese or anything like that. But that's not illegal. That's me exercising my liberty as an Englishman to choose what I want. Yeah, so there you go. I understand that most people can't be public. They get kicked out of university, things get fucked up for them. It's why I partly have reservations about re-entering education, because if I were to do that, and then my channel was found, what would happen? I would wager in most instances it wouldn't matter, and that, if I was doing like English or something, or history or whatever, the lecturer or whoever would just see it as, he just has a hobby, has a few edgy opinions, but he just has a hobby. In England, generally speaking, we don't have the same kind of cultural Marxist pause that you have in the United States regarding, diversity training and these sorts of things. It's here in some places, but it's not here to the strength that it is in America. America is a land of eccentrics, and the left is no exception from that. So if I were to re-enter education, then perhaps it would be a problem. But I'm quite relaxed. I'm sure if I were to re-enter education, I would do it in such a way, and I would be involved in certain things whereby it wouldn't be a problem. I'm not, with the EDL or with the BNP or things like this. And just generally as a person, I'm a pleasant enough guy, and that would probably consider into it if it was a lecturer, for example, who found my stuff. So there you go. If I ever do get shut down, then I'll be quite surprised, in honesty. But hey, it's one of these risks. I don't have any worry. My main worry is for my family. I don't want my family to be accosted by Bolshevik cunts because something I said might have been, edgy. And that is a real possibility. That's why I'm not public really about where exactly I live. I say I live in Exeter, but Exeter's it's not a tiny place, but it's people can't find me that easily. But anyway, someone isn't gonna fucking drive down from some like Bristol or wherever just to fucking stab me. And if they did, again, martyrdom. I mean, that's a bit retarded. It probably wouldn't be as nice as that. But yeah, it doesn't matter. Regarding the actual regeneration of Europe, it'll happen whether I do this or not. I'm just playing my part because I have no other choice. In my own way, I can only do certain things. If I had my way, like I've said to people before, I would be in the military. But some things we just can't achieve. Anyway, last comment for this evening, for this evening actually, because I've spoken way too much. Aphex. Okay, we have a bit of a silly comment, everyone, so brace yourselves. Trump is a gigantic moron and represents everything that's wrong with USA. Sure, Clinton is retarded as hell and will fuck up, but at least we know what we're gonna get. Well, Trump won. In these sorts of comments, you can just tell this person has never actually had an independent thought in their life. Trump is not a gigantic moron. Do you really think a gigantic moron would turn $1 million into 10 billion? And would own property all over the world, 15 bestsellers, and now President of the United States or President-elect. A gigantic moron. No. He's playing his cards, and he's played his cards his entire election. The brash rhetoric, the braggadocious, kind of egotistical personality, the vague, politically incorrect statements, they're all on purpose. They're all deliberate. Just read the art of the deal, and you'll see what I'm talking about. People who have watched Stefan Molyneux talk about Trump know what I'm talking about. But Trump's done this deliberately. He's played his cards properly, and he's achieved what he wanted to do. He went in to win, and that's what he's done. He isn't a gigantic moron. Represents everything that's wrong with the USA? No, I don't think so. He represents self-discipline. He represents self-control. Most of the time. Success. Ingenuity. Pragmatism. From a traditional point of view, yeah, there are problems. There are myriad problems. But if we're just speaking in the terms of the secular and the here and now, Trump does represent the American dream to an extent. The idea of success and power through land and through a kind of conquest. It's quite interesting. Clinton is retarded as hell. Well, I don't think Clinton is retarded. She's foolish. She's very intelligent. She's very Machiavellian and scheming. But she was naive in thinking that she would actually win this. The Democratic Party is naive for thinking they could put Clinton out there and win. Bernie Sanders would have had a better chance against Trump. I think Trump still would have won against Sanders. Although, hey, it's too late now. And anyway, as we know from the Podesta leaks, Bernie was controlled from the start by the DNC. So, or was by the Democratic Party. Anyways, that last comment there is a bit, just a lefty being a lefty. So I think we can wrap it up right there, everyone. There will be a Plebeian podcast in a while. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.